Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the new Gems of War faction of Aman'Thrax. So this is a kingdom or faction that's associated with the kingdom of Zacian, which ends up bringing it, I believe, to 14 stars. Currently stuck at 12 because of the pet thingy, but of course it will give you the extra HP. This also makes it quite a bit easier to gain the 24,000 faction HP bonus if you didn't already have it, as well as just the 20,000 if you also didn't have that one. Since every single new kingdom, of course, makes that quite a bit easier. As far as the faction layouts that we have going on with this thing, it is a rather straightforward one. You only really have a choice at the beginning. Of course, you do the first room, as you always have to do, and then you have a choice at the beginning of basically to do this tier 5 or tier 4. You basically just check the tier 5, see if it's 1.4 or higher. If it is not, so it's currently 1.3, you check the 4, because that's possible of being a 1.4, and then you take that one, most likely, then that one, and then you just go around the circle, and then take the boss room. One thing to note about the boss room, at least for this weekend, this is something that they're going to be fixing on Monday, that they have already just recently confirmed. Unfortunately, it's not happening today, but they'll be getting this fixed on Monday. Obviously, this is not correct. The final room is currently giving a 1x multiplier and a 0% chest upgrade for this weekend until the Monday reset when they fix it. Actually, I believe they're fixing it later tonight, so I believe that's around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. I believe that's being fixed. So it's technically being fixed about 6 hours or so before the reset. However, of course, it's still going to be annoying for most of the event because most people are going to be doing it while it's at a lower amount of resources. That's supposed to be 1.25, and that, of course, is supposed to be 100%, but still doing it all the way out. They're going to be doing some kind of recompensation for it. But anyways, as far as teams, there are several teams that we can end up getting away with for this faction, and one of them is using the new troop that just ended up coming in from this faction, and that is King Gobtruffle. Gobtruffle is ridiculously strong. Like top 10 in the entire game, probably, as far as at least its current state at this given moment in time. It is a ridiculously good troop. Not only does it have damage to all enemies, it can end up creating a mix of green and brown, but it also gets to do all of this with a extra turn, similar to every other goblin in the game. So it gets not just a high amount of damage, but also an extremely high amount of mana generation, and can basically just infinitely loop into itself. It also gets a boost ratio on how many creates based on diseased or poison on the opposing team. Not so easy to poison them in most teams that it ends up using, but disease is ridiculously easy, given that it can end up diseasing a enemy every single time you end up taking a extra turn. So really easy to get those diseases down if it wasn't for the fact that we're up against undead right now, which is actually going to make it so we can't end up getting those, but it shouldn't make too big a difference. All we have to do here is try getting one of these 2 manas. Of course, there is none available, so we'll just take a random move. Just let him do his little convert just so he doesn't get anything. And let's get the last little bit of our mana so we can actually get operational. Luckily, one nice thing is, of course, enchant in this game mode, which makes it so we don't necessarily need like a half mana start. I'm currently using Warren with this, which is a little bit of a weird pick, but there's 2 reasons for this. One is it has a green storm, which will allow us to infinitely loop, which I actually will still have right now, so that'll work out perfectly. As long as you win within the first 4 turns, you'll still be able to utilize that, and normally you will be able to with this team because of its infinite loop. And yeah, it's really interesting because it's the first faction team that can end up clearing everything efficiently from very low-level delves all the way to 500. You can get away all the way to 500 with this thing, and it will just clear out everything. And every delve in the entire game that uses blue is capable of using this entire team, so pretty interesting in that regard. But yeah, Warren. Warren mainly is for the Green Storm and the Dispel. Dispel very rarely comes into play, however, there's 2 really particular things that ends up getting utilized for. One is for Submerge, and the other is for Barrier. Since this troop does do AoE damage, it will need a way to get rid of the Submerge, just so you can actually do damage. And of course, being able to get rid of Barrier will make it so they don't block out one of your attacks. And of course, it gets rid of all the other positive stats effects as well. However, those are the 2 most relevant ones that it ends up countering. Also, of course, we get 2 battles in a row that converts out all of our green, but it's not really going to matter much. It does make it so we can't use a quick cast on our Forest Troll. However, as soon as we cast one of these, that's generally going to create enough green that we can just double it and go from there. So that should be enough. I'll take that first, though, just in case. Get another one down. In case that's not going to be enough, and that's definitely going to be enough to just double in and just get our infinite loop. And once you have the double of them going, it pretty much never stops. Even if you lose all your mana on those 2, there's likely enough greens that you can just double it and get it all right back. You might be wondering why we're running Shegra's Heart. It's kind of like the inverse of why we're running this spell on this hero class. Of course, it gets to cleanse all allies, and is we mainly use to counter out freeze and web. Freeze, of course, preventing us from doing an infinite loop on this, and web makes his damage go all the way down to 2, since it gets rid of all the magic that you might have from various bonuses. The other benefit of it is it creates a mixture of brown and red being irrelevant. However, brown is pretty relevant since he creates green and brown, so you'd have a decent chance of getting a brown extra turn when using the Sugar Heart to cleanse your team. But there we go, simple as that, and running that through the entirety of the Delves does function, and it's a relatively cheap team. The fungi you can end up getting from the faction itself, of course, is from Portals, the new legend that is. And as far as the rest of the team, the Forest Troll uses an epic that you can just get randomly off the normal drops like Glory Keys and Gem Keys. I believe it might actually even be in Soul Forge this week. I didn't actually double check. That'd be amazing if it was. Wouldn't that be so perfectly coincidental? I don't think it is, though. That would be perfect if it was. No, it isn't this week, but do keep an eye on it if you don't have Forest Troll for that team. And other than that, you just run Sugar's Heart, which is a weapon you get for free all the way at the end. And you can end up at around, I believe it's 34 brown blue mastery, somewhere around there. And most people would have that for free, and you just put that with a Warden hero class. And you can also run it with Titan if you want to go down that route. As far as level 200 to 500, if you do want to opt for a more traditional team, Mountain Crusher, Apothecary, High King, Iron Gut, Possessed King, or replacing Apothecary for Queen Isabel. Doing any kind of setup like that is generally going to be one of your best bets if you're looking for the higher level delves. You generally don't want to do this for the lower level delves, and most likely just want to go with something like the Truffle team. If you don't happen to have a second Truffle, you can go like Web Spinner or something there, and that would poison boost ratio his ability, while still giving you another option to loop green with the fact that you have so many things that can just infinitely loop green. So that ends up working out pretty decently. And Pure Faction is a bit weird, because this troop is so ridiculously good that the most efficient way to actually do it is just to spam 4 of the troop. Main reason for this is there isn't really anything good from this kingdom, other than him. This thing is basically a weaker version of Poison Master. It explodes a bunch of gems, and if the enemy is diseased, it then poisons a bunch of them. The only really good thing that it has going for it is it has Impervious, but its mana cost is more than Poison Master. Its poison itself is more inconsistent than Poison Master, and it does less explosions than Poison Master. So overall, I'm not really sure what they were planning with that troop. The only really redeeming factor is it has Impervious. Also, every single thing from this delve, while relatively irrelevant, does inflict poison whenever it takes skull damage. This is almost going to help the enemy, so it's kind of a weird perk to have, if you can even call it a perk. So yeah, it's pretty underwhelming, and every single thing in his faction has it, which is one of the reasons why all these other troops are so bad. This thing you do have to worry about, this is a troop that you'll see on the first and final battle. If it ends up targeting something that's diseased, it'll have a 15% chance to transform them to a Mushroom Man. That's a relatively high chance to end up transforming. The main issue, or reason that this is an issue, is if you get transformed in delves, not only does that thing stay transformed for the entirety of the delve, but the more important thing is a transform onto your team by the enemy counts as a death. So if they end up getting that transform on you and you're trying to do deathless, that will count as a death. So be mindful of that if you're doing level 500 delve or any higher level delve, or just trying to get the deathless done in general at any given level range. That transform will end up counting as a death and will prevent you from getting deathless. The Mushroom Man, which is the thing that he transforms into, pretty useless troop. Does have a little bit of score reduction going for it, but all it really does is enrage itself and give itself a bit of attack. Nothing too special, nothing you'd really want to use, and it's deliberately supposed to be kind of bad because that's what he transforms them into. And of course the King Gob Truffle, which is just insanely good. It's even used in things like outside of the game mode there. We can end up running this in PvP. There's a slightly annoying Orb Weaver team, and we could probably just completely obliterate it with this infinite loop right here. We do have to worry about web, but that is why we have the Shekar's Heart. The Shekar's Heart definitely used quite a bit more in PvP than that of the context of delves, that is for sure. I still personally use the Warrens in the Warren hero class in PvP. You can still use this with Titan, and the main benefit of that is you can use Elemental bonus to give this a bunch of HP, keep getting your explosions to get more mana, and everything along those lines. However, I find the Green Storm to be so ridiculously vital that I generally just like running it with this. Of course, there are more hero classes and more than that have it, but you also get the dispel aspect, which is nice. But you get slightly less damage, but you basically never lose your turn if you have the Green Storm on. As long as you can get the loop going within your first 4 turns before the storm goes away, it's pretty much a guaranteed win at that point, as you can see. Even if he ends up getting summons off his Orb Weaver, which he's most likely going to get, It might be a little bit annoying, however, we won't really have to deal with much, because we can just keep looping and looping and looping, and it's never really going to end. It's been a while since we've had such a consistent infinite loop, but yeah, we finally have one again with this new trip that ended up coming into the game. We still don't know if they're going to be tweaking it, but as it currently stands, this is the state in which he is in which he basically infinites as soon as you get him rolling. One of the reasons why he's so good for pure faction. You can run him for PvP. You can run him for literally every single faction battle from 20 to 500 and any delve that uses blue. And is overall a really nice option these days. That is for sure. And other than that, yeah, that was actually everything then. Oh yes, there's one other thing. The weapon. The useless weapon from this faction, but I did want to mention it real quick. If we go over to, actually I might as well show it in the thing. Oh gosh, I forgot the name of the thingy thing. The how on earth do you spell this kingdom name? The kingdom name. Well, it helped if I could actually pronounce it correctly. There we go. But this is the weapon that ended up coming in from the faction. If you're wondering what the perks are, it does gain enchant, so it does have that going for it. It diseases first enemy, poisons first enemy, and gains a bit of life. All the other perks are just kind of normal-ish stuff. And other than that, it does a small amount of scatter damage, which is pretty much trivial. It does have a bit of boost ratio on it, but that's also trivial. It then explodes 3 gems for every single Amithyrax ally onto your team. So you could theoretically get 9, since obviously you can't set your hero as that. This would be somewhat okay if you were to use it with that one legend that ended up coming into the game. Since you can actually put that into the team instead of using something like the Shegra's Heart. If you know you're not going to be up against stats effects, you could use this and end up getting 6 explosions off it. However, it doesn't really have any consistency of gaining extra turn, and for that reason, you likely wouldn't want to use it. It's really weird that they would add a kind of goblin-like weapon, but not give it extra turn. It's kind of weird. Almost every single weapon from Zacian is actually set up similarly, in that the entirety of the kingdom is basically extra turn spam everywhere. Yet, I don't think a single weapon from Zacian actually has an extra turn attached to it, which would seem really weird given that the entire premise of the setup of the kingdom is like that. Yet, quite literally, the only one is the weapon off the, or the most relevant one, actually, of the 8, which is the skeleton key that you get automatically off of Thief from 250 wins on the hero class. But anyways, that is everything with this faction. Do be, of course, mindful of the fact that it is kind of nerfed until Monday. So if you do want to absolutely maximize your loot and you have time, the last 6 hours before the event resets, this should be fixed. So if you want to go and grind out during that time, you should be able to. However, we don't have confirmation on if they're extending the event. People have requested for it to happen, though it doesn't seem like they will be. It's likely they're just going to reimburse in some way on Monday for this mistake and kind of just go from there. But anyways, guys, that's everything with this stuff. Hope you all enjoy. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I will catch all of you later. Best of luck with the faction event. Goodbye, everyone!